So today, we're converting our quadratic formula to vertex form using completing the square. So this is our quadratic formula that we'll be using, and your first step is going to be to label A, B, and C terms. Now in this formula, our A is equal to 1. Next, you need to group your A and B terms together and your C on the outside. Make sure you leave space for your new term. To find your new C term, you're going to need to divide your B term by 2 and square it, which will be 4. Now, the reason we put it on the outside is to balance it out. Now, to find your new vertex form, you're going to need to take the square root of your first term, the sign from B, and the square root of your last term. The square root of our first term is x. Our sign from B is positive. And the square root of our last term is 2. And for the last part, you need to subtract 4 from negative 8. And this becomes your final vertex form when A equals 1. Now we'll be completing a quadratic formula where A does not equal 1. So your first step is going to be identifying your A, B, and C terms. Now, because A does not equal 1, you'll need to factor it out from your first two terms. So we take 2 out, which leaves us with x squared. And when you take 12 divided by 2, you get 6, leaving room for your C term. And leaving room to balance it out. Now you continue the steps like in the first example. 6 divided by 2 will be 3, and 3 squared will be 9, which becomes your new C term. Now, because we're going to put 9 over here to balance it out, and it's outside of the parentheses, you need to multiply it by 2. And finally, to get your vertex form, you're going to leave the 2 factored out. Take the square root of your first term, your sign from B, and the square root of your third term. And on the outside, you take plus 3 minus 18. And this becomes your new vertex form. Now let's do some examples. First, identify your A, B, and C terms. Group your A and B terms together. Divide your B term by 2, which is 6. Square it. And that becomes your new C term. Now, because A is equal to 1, all you need to do is subtract 36 to balance it out. Now we're ready to make our new vertex form. First, you need the square root of your first term, which is x, your sign from B, and your square root of your third term, which is 6. Now you subtract negative 36 from negative 10. Now you have your new vertex form. Now we're going to do a little bit harder example where A is not equal to 1. So you're still going to be identifying your A, B, and C terms. But remember, because A does not equal 1, you're going to need to factor it out. So when we factor out 5, we have x squared plus 8x, leaving a spot for your new C term. And we don't factor out 5 from 15 because it's outside of the parentheses. Next, you divide your B term by 2, which is 4. You square it, which is 16, and that becomes your new C term. Now, because 16 is inside the parentheses, we need to multiply it by 5, which is 80. Now, to get our final vertex form, with the 5 factored out, you take the square root of your first term, your sign from B, the square root of your last term, which is 4, and then we subtract 80 from 15. This gives you your quadratic formula in vertex form. Now for our final example, we'll be dealing with some fractions. So step 1, you want to identify your terms. Next, because A doesn't equal 1, you want to factor it out, which leaves us with x squared minus 3x with a space for your new C term plus 3. Next, you divide your negative 3 by 2, which leaves us with negative 3 halves, and you're going to square it. Negative 3 squared is 9, and 2 squared is 4, which becomes your new C term. Now, we need to multiply 9/4 by 2 because it's outside of the parentheses. The 2 is the same as 2 over 1, which gives us 18/4, which can be reduced to 9 halves. Now we're ready to put it into vertex form. You leave the 2 out, take the square root of your first term, the sign from B, and the square root of your third term. Now we need to combine positive 3 and negative 9 halves. Because it's easier to combine when we have a like denominator, we're going to change 3 to 6 over 2. Which leaves us with negative 3 halves. And that gives you your completed vertex form.